What's up, everyone? Today we're talking about custom apartments that I designed and developed while live streaming on Twitch. We were able to put together the first half of this build, and I plan on live streaming the second half very soon. If you haven't already, please give me a follow on Twitch at dustocado and be there when we're putting together the second half of this build. And you can give suggestions. I'm planning on adding an amenity center and all kinds of really cool stuff. So, without further ado, we'll get started with the first half of the custom apartments build. So, the first thing to note, and anyone who builds cities will know that it is a lot of trial and error. You are balancing form and function anytime you're putting this together. And if you're not doing those things, then you're not doing it right, in my opinion. So if we look at this, this is the map. You'll see this in the bottom left corner. This is kind of what we're aiming for. So it's not an exact one-to-one replica copy, but it is, close to the idea, the nature of that diagram. This is a diagram that's overlaid on top of basically a screenshot of the city. If you're interested to know how I did that, please let me know in the comments and I'll put that on stream, how we put that together to build inspiration and give ideas as to a particular build so that you can visualize it. Because sometimes we find ourselves guessing, we find ourselves, making assumptions and just kind of, going off on our merry way, and we're not necessarily doing anything productive. So if you have a guide, if you have an idea of how you want to build it or how you want it to look, have that handy while you're building and don't just guess. Put it together with intention, and you'll see that your builds will come out 10 times better. In that spirit, however, we are still doing a lot of guesswork. So it is just a guideline, but that guideline is super important. It helps give us purpose in our designs and helps guide us through that process. So here we are. We've got our first set of apartment buildings put together. We're adding walkways. These will be functional walkways to allow residents to enjoy the courtyard. There will also be things for them to do in the courtyard, places for them to go, a pavilion, things like that. That will be shown there at the end of this video, so you'll be able to see that. When we're doing these things, we're being as real as we can. So as you can see, back to that spirit of kind of guessing along the way as you go, but using your guidelines where you can. I determined that we needed to bring that road down because I needed more space for the central piece of this plan, which is commercial. I wanted to add a large shopping center or grocery store there in the center, along with some smaller commercial areas, little shops and things like that. And then on the other side of that piece, on the far left of this section, will be another apartment complex. So you see that in the diagram in the bottom left. That's kind of what we're going for. So trying to frame out what I want those roads to look like. Again, I cut out a lot of the trial and error in this edit, but I did still want you to see that when you see somebody's final build, there is trial and error. We're trying to figure out how things are going to work. You can see that live on Twitch as we're putting these things together. But watching those final videos, a lot of creators will take out all of that, oh, this didn't work, this works kind of thing, and just show you kind of the final product. So keep that in mind when you're doing your own cities, that just because it's not working right away doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong or bad, or you don't know what you're doing. Just keep trying, keep working at it, and follow any plans that you can come up with similar to what we're doing here. So again, go in with these builds with intention, with a plan, with an idea. Don't just guess, really go for it and put it together, execute your plan. So here's our grocery store we're putting in right here in the center. And around this, like I said, will be other commercial areas, different shops and stuff like that. This is the Southwest pack of commercial zoning. I've got the residential as well. I just feel like these assets, when they come through on the zoning, feel to me to be more realistic, more interesting looking. I also have, I think, a Northeast and maybe a Japanese pack or something. I find that it's good to have those varieties throughout your city because it just gives your city more character, more, you know, interesting types of buildings that that appear and people can look at. And, you know, like I said, it's more realistic. Not, you know, you look at a whole city, it's not going to be all the same type of building all throughout the entire city. So we're adding more walkways. Walkways are great. So don't just rely on your walkways or your sidewalks throughout your city that's, you know, directly attached to your walls, to your roads. Build walkways. You can do this very easily, like I've done here, and you can add and make them functional. You can add you know, invisible walkways for pedestrians very, very easily, and this will give pedestrians more of an option to, you know, not just stay on those sidewalks along the road. So here I've opted to add paid parking spots that are covered right along there, so people can choose to park on the street for free, or they can choose to park in the covered parking areas, which is, you know, very realistic if you've ever lived in an apartment community. Okay, we're going to add some more walkways once again to add more depth, more character to the apartment community, more interesting features. You know, when these become functional, you'll see people walking on them. It just makes it look very interesting, very unique, and you know, not just so plain when you're looking at people just walking on sidewalks along the road. Making a quick fix. Now I decided to add a water feature here next to the shopping center. I find adding water features adds a lot of depth to the area, a lot of color, a lot of interest. And when you look at this build, the final build, the water feature is going to draw your eyes every single time. So you'll notice it right away. And that's part of building and making things interesting, is adding things like this. I saw this rock wall on another post somewhere, and I thought it was so interesting. I figured, hey, I could do that. Adding this retaining rock wall is very common. I mean, that is something you do see, and it adds a lot of texture and a lot of cool shadows. So I like that. And I think I add more later once I add the other half of the water feature, which I'm doing here now. On the second half of the water feature, I elected to make it more sloped so that you have a beginning and an end to your water. And you'll see that better once we add the bridge there. So it kind of creates a continuous water, a body of water, not just, you know, a pond surrounded by gigantic boulders and rocks and trees and stuff. Plus, as you can see, you get nice reflections from the sun. It just adds a lot of cool details, a lot of cool textures, and I'm vibing. It's coming out good. It's looking good. If you think it's looking good, let me know your favorite part so far down in the comments. Give a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and definitely jump over to Twitch. I'm really trying to build a community over there of people who enjoy these types of games. I also play, you know, all types of games, Battlefield. I'm going to be playing another city builder that's coming out, I think, next month. So definitely subscribe on here, follow on Twitch, and I'm going to keep making content as long as people keep liking it. So let me know your favorite part, and yeah, I appreciate your watching. Big stretch and ready to keep going. All right, so this is the second half of the apartments build out, and as you can see, we're rotating, we're placing this one along here, and then we will use that Anarchy mod to stack them on top of each other to create that continuous apartment look that you see all over the place. Looks good. And keeping with the theme, we are adding yet another sidewalk for the courtyard area right along there. And don't forget to bend the corners. Don't make them 90 degrees if you can avoid it. Those bent quarters add a lot of character to your sidewalk, so be mindful of that. I was able to fit 3 apartments here, and now you can see there's a ton of space in between where I want to cultivate that that space into a courtyard, but I figured I might be able to get a couple more apartments to share that courtyard space. So once I'm done here, you'll see another one of those trial and error spots where I'm kind of going through, I'm trying to figure out how to connect, how to build the roads. There's no rule book that teaches you how to do this. You got to kind of know what works, what doesn't work, what looks good, and you have to have that vision and that guide to help you take most of the guesswork out of this process. So you can see I'm trying to line it up. I'm trying to keep it nice and parallel. And I'm trying to figure out, how do I make this connect? Because I want a road that is parallel to the parking road to the right there, so that there are apartments on either side that's going to share that courtyard space. So you can see I was able to make it pretty parallel by putting in those guide roads. And there now it should be, oh, there you go, there's the guide roads, and now we're definitely parallel, and we've got our court put in. So this is looking pretty good, and we're going to add those apartments into here, and they'll have a little bit of courtyard space. At the end of the build, you won't see it during this replay, but that space there to the right, I do put a park in there, so we have more of a courtyard off to the side. But you will see that at the end of this video. You'll see it in the final reveal, where I'll show and kind of demonstrate that piece. I wanted to continue the theme of adding paid parking with these, so I'm clearing out some of this, and I'm adding in those covered parking spots, and I'm adding in some guest parking spots as well. And this space fit perfect. I love when it fits perfectly like that. Got rid of this one so that I could put the identical one here with it, and I didn't like how they looked kind of the same, so I flipped this one around and just made it more interesting. So be cognizant of how things are looking, and things are coming together. I'm getting excited. You can tell we're ready to go. Streams are a lot of fun, guys. Again, if you haven't already, go over to Twitch, follow me on there, and I take suggestions. I listen to what y'all are saying, and we try to put it together. We try to make it like a team. Like I said, I'm building a community, and this is part of that. This is what we want to do. So you can see I added a lawn surface there. That eventually does go away towards the end of this video. I don't think it's on this recap, but if you notice, if you look, you'll see that it's no longer there at a certain point during the final reveal. That's because, like I said, I accidentally deleted it, and then after I accidentally deleted it, I was like, actually, that looks better, so we're gonna stick with that. All right, and now it's time to add all of our trees. And I think trees are super important because they add that height, texture, they add that movement, that motion, they add the color, and more importantly, they just add realism to whatever you're building. You have to be very careful when you're placing trees. You can't just put them anywhere and everywhere. You have to be very intentional with where you're placing them. You cannot overdo it. Anytime you're unsure on things like this, pull up Google Maps and just look at how trees are placed and figure out, does it make sense? Like that tall one I was just placing didn't make any sense, so I got rid of it. A lot of times walkways are lined with bushes, so we're just going to recreate that look here. And there you go. Looking nice, looking very put together, and we'll speed run through here, adding in more trees, kind of framing out this area. And eventually I will add walls and things like that to further keep everything in one place and draw the viewer's eye into just one location. Because to me, this is, like I said earlier, it's form and function. To me, this is artistic. This is, how do you draw the eyes of the viewer, somebody who's looking at this piece? Now, one thing I wanted to try differently that I don't think I've ever seen before is mulch beds. So I have this riverbed surface that I thought, I wonder what this would look like. Don't be afraid to experiment and try things. Don't just keep doing the same thing over and over and over, because that's the best way to burn yourself out of this game. You want to try things. You want to watch videos like mine. You want to look at Google Earth, see what things are doing. And even when you're out in the world, look at, next time you're at a restaurant, look at the landscaping and just see what they did in real life, because that's what you want to mimic. So you can see I'm putting some boulders in here. That's something that I see in my real, and you know, my day to day when I go places. I will see gigantic boulders and things in mulch beds of these types of places. So you can see here I'm adding in that wall, really nice brick wall that will help frame out and contain these mulch beds all the way around the entire development. And even along the road here in just a little bit, I will separate the road from the development. And we'll go ahead and put the wall all along the other side as well. I think it's looking pretty good. What do you think? You think it looks good? Looking realistic? Something you want to look at? Something maybe you want to do in your own city? Let me know. Let me know your favorite parts so far. I was really impressed with the mulch beds. I think, like I said, this is something that I have never done before, and I am officially doing it in every single one of my cities. Any opportunity I get, these mulch beds are going down because it just adds such a sense of realism, and you know, it breaks up that grass, it breaks up the land, it creates so much texture and you know, more color, and again, just more realistic. And that's what we're going for here. All right, we're gonna go ahead and separate from that main arterial road and bring this all the way back around. So that's what it looks from the sky. Now we're gonna add more mulch beds. A lot of this detailing is gonna be very, very fast. If you have questions, you know, feel free to pause, write out a comment. I will answer as many questions as I possibly can. I have hundreds of hours in this game, hundreds of hours in the first city Skylines, hundreds of hours in, you know, the OG, the Sim Cities, all of them. I played, I would say pretty much every city builder you could possibly imagine that, you know, is a realistic type city builder. So not that I am the expert, but I do have a lot of experience. And if you have questions, if you're not sure on something, how did I do something, or why did I do something a certain way, again, feel free to put your question in the comments and I'll be happy to answer as many as I can. Now in this section, I am adding mulch. You're seeing I'm doing it a little bit differently. I've left some space there at the top. It was too wide, kind of how it flares out. And so I decided to leave that central area alone and add other landscaping there because it just didn't seem right to mulch the entire area. And so you'll see that here in just a moment, what I decided to go with there. So yeah, it's looking really good. More rocks laid out, framing out that area. And now I'm adding in that tall grass. And on top of that tall grass, I'm adding bushes just to break it up, to add that sense of, yes, I'm very excited. Yes, everyone's clapping, everyone's ready to go. But it breaks it up and just makes it look more realistic. And now I'm adding in those same bushes, or that same tall grass right through here, just to create a sense of continuity with those trees. So they don't look like they're by themselves, because they looked a little bit lonely. And you see this a lot too when you have mulch beds, because essentially what the goal is, obviously the goal is to look nice. When you go to the doctor's office or to whatever, a shopping center, you see these trees and you see that they typically have bushes or some kind of lower type of plant in between or around them. So yeah, it's used for decoration, it's used for landscaping, it's used for runoff purposes, but it's also used for creating barriers. You know, if you just had trees, people could walk through your mulch bed. So you want to put bushes and things like that to dissuade that, rocks. So you got to think about why we do things, not just because it looks good, but what's the purpose, what's the function. Okay, now we're framing out some of these mulch beds with the smaller, I guess it's a fence. And I added, if you see that little green dotted line, those are pedestrian pathways. And I added some space in that fence so that people can take a shortcut if they want to. I know I just said that's frowned upon, but People are people, and they do that kind of stuff all the time. Now, what does every apartment community have but clusters of dumpsters in different areas of the apartment community? So here we've got 2 landfill dumpsters and 1 recycle dumpster, and I have some great surfaces for this, got everything laid out. And this is when I really started going crazy when it comes to detailing. You know, I haven't been the biggest detailer in this game until I started making content. And this part here that we're about to watch was the first time that I really started detailing and adding in decals and just making it realistic and just like picture perfect. I've always done those things with like the trees and the bushes and stuff, but like this is, in my opinion, sort of a step above. And you'll see what I mean here in just a moment. So I'm trying to figure out how to configure these, where I want them, what makes the most sense, what we might see in real life. And now I'm laying down these different textures and decals. That one eventually does go away because there was no way to blend it with the rest of the sidewalk. But you can see I'm adding in some gravel, and here in a moment I'll add some black spots that kind of, this particular decal, it seems like it's made for dumpster areas, because look at this, these oil spots, it looks so filthy. It looks perfect for this area. We're going to add some cracks just to set off this, you know, the fact that this is not a place that people like to hang out. Yes, we are entertained. We're ready to go. Now, the one thing we like to do with this area, because it is kind of nasty, is we're going to wall it off. So we've got these hedges that we can put all the way around it. This is common. You see fences, you see hedges, you see walls, any way to separate the filth from everything around it. A lot of times there's gates, and maybe I'll add gates to this now that I think about that. You know, talking about it out loud helps think about what you see. And a lot of times there are gates in front of these things to keep people out and only allow the trash truck to come in. So that's what it's looking like. I think eventually I do add a street lamp in there for nighttime, which you'll see at the end of the video. But yeah, we're going to get rid of this because it just doesn't look good in my opinion. As soon as I can get it highlighted here. And there it was. And it's gone. All right. So that's the final product for the trash section. I added a second trash section, which you'll see here in the final reveal. And again, comment below, what's your favorite area? Tell me what you think about this. I'd love to hear your comments and your feedback. What are you going to take away from this and put in your own city, if anything at all? Did you hate it? Did you love it? Tell me what you think. And again, follow on Twitch so that you can be a part of the second build out for this, and you can be part of the community, because that's what we're ultimately doing here. Again, thank you so much for watching, for checking out my videos, for inspiring me and keeping me building, keeping me doing the best that I can in these videos. It's been so much fun so far, and I just want to keep doing it. So subscribe, follow, all the things. Thanks so much, guys. You have a great day, and I really appreciate you.